Most men find out their marriage has been dead when a lawyer slides papers across a table. I found out when a locksmith called me from the back of my own garage and said, "Sir, there's a safe behind your workbench, and your name is on the police file inside." My name is Harold Whitaker. I am 64 years old. I live in a quiet brick ranch house outside Knoxville, Tennessee, the kind with a sloped driveway, 2 maple trees in front, and neighbors who still wave even when they do not remember your name. I spent 38 years working for the county water department. I fixed broken mains in the rain, crawled through mud for men half my age, and retired with a bad knee, a good pension, and the belief that I had earned a peaceful ending. For 29 years, I was married to a woman named Marlene. Now, listen to me, my friends. When you have eaten dinner across from the same person almost 30 years, you start believing you know the rhythm of their soul. You know how they clear their throat before they tell a lie to a telemarketer. You know which mug they reach for when they are tired. You know the sound of their slippers in the hall at 2 a.m. You know when they are happy, when they are annoyed, when they are pretending not to be hurt. At least, you think you do. Marlene was 61, pretty in the careful way some women become, after learning exactly what looks good under soft kitchen light. She taught Sunday school for 17 years. She brought casseroles to widows. She mailed birthday cards to people who had forgotten hers. She wore a silver cross around her neck and kept a little notebook beside the phone where she wrote down prayer requests from women at church. That was the woman people knew. That was the woman I thought I knew. The whole thing started on a Thursday morning in October, 3 weeks after Marlene left for what she called a women's retreat in Savannah. She had gone with her oldest friend, Patricia Boone, who had one of those voices that sounded sweet even when she was cutting you open. I never cared much for Patricia, but I never said so. At my age, a man learns that not every opinion needs to leave his mouth. Marlene had been gone 2 days when I realized I could not find the title to my old Ford truck. I was not selling it. I would not have sold that truck for anything. It was a 1997 F-150, forest green, cracked dashboard, cassette player that still worked when it felt generous. My grandson Tyler wanted to use it for a school auto shop project, and I told him he could long as he treated it like family. The title should have been in my fireproof box. It was not. So I did what any retired man with too much time and not enough sense would do. I tore the house apart, looking for a piece of paper I had not touched in 10 years. Closets, desk drawers, the filing cabinet in the laundry room. Nothing. Then I remembered the old metal cabinet in the garage. That cabinet sat behind my workbench, the one my father built before I was married. I had not moved that workbench since Bush was president. The cabinet was wedged so tight between the concrete wall and a shelf full of paint cans that I figured it would take 2 men and a blessing to get to it. I called a locksmith because the cabinet had an old round lock and I had lost the key sometime during the Obama administration. A fellow named Eli Mercer showed up at 11:10. Skinny guy, early 40s, ball cap, beard trimmed neat, tool bag over one shoulder. He looked at the cabinet, then at the workbench, then back at me. "Mr. Whitaker," he said, "if I pull that cabinet out, your bench is going to have to move a few inches." "Son," I told him, "that bench has been there longer than your beard. Do what you've got to do." I went inside to make coffee while he worked. My knee was hurting that morning, and I remember thinking Marlene would fuss at me if she knew I was letting a stranger move things in the garage while she was gone. She always liked to supervise anything involving the house. Repairs, deliveries, even gutter cleaning. She had a way of standing with her arms crossed, smiling politely while somehow making grown men nervous. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Eli. I answered with a laugh. "You get trapped under the workbench?" He did not laugh back. "Mr. Whitaker," he said, voice low, "there's something behind here you need to see." I walked out to the garage, still holding my coffee. Eli had pulled the workbench forward maybe 6 inches. Behind it, cut into the drywall, and painted the same beige as the garage, was a square metal door about 2 feet wide. A wall safe. I stared at it. I had lived in that house 31 years. Raised 2 daughters in that house. Celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas mornings, arguments, apologies, all under that roof. I had fixed every leaky faucet, patched every nail hole, replaced every light switch. I had never seen that safe. Maybe previous owners? Eli said. We were the first owners, I said. That is when he pointed to the keypad. The safe was not old. Not like the house. Not like the workbench. It was modern, digital, with a little brand sticker still clean enough to shine. Did you install it? He asked. No. Does your wife know about it? I opened my mouth. Then I closed it. Eli looked uncomfortable. I can open it if you want, but once I do, I'd recommend you take photos before touching anything. Something in the way he said that made the hair on the back of my neck rise. Why? He swallowed. Because there's a police evidence sticker on the inside edge. I almost told him that was impossible. Old men say that too often, don't we? Impossible. Like the world asks our permission before it breaks. Eli opened the safe in under 4 minutes. I watched his hands move. Calm. Professional. Too calm for what was happening. When the little door clicked open, neither of us spoke. Inside was a sealed plastic folder. Not hidden under cash. Not mixed with jewelry. Placed upright, deliberate, like somebody wanted it found. On the folder was a label printed in black letters. Case. File. Mark. Ellison. 2019. Under it was my full name. Harold James Whittaker. My knees went loose. Mark Ellison had been a contractor from Maryville who disappeared 4 years earlier. I remembered his face from the news. Everybody around Knoxville did. He had walked out of a hardware store one rainy Tuesday and vanished. They found his truck 3 days later near the river, keys still inside, wallet gone. For a few weeks, every gas station had his missing person flyer taped to the door. I had never met the man. But inside that safe, in my garage, behind my workbench, was a police file with my name on it. Eli stepped back, like he had opened a coffin. You need to call someone, he said. I am someone, I whispered. But I was not. Not anymore. By 12:05, 2 Knox County deputies were standing in my garage. By 12:40, a detective named Sandra Bell had the folder spread open on my kitchen table while I sat across from her, trying to remember how breathing worked. Inside the folder were copies of emails between me and Mark Ellison, except I had never written them. There was a receipt from a motel outside Chattanooga, except I had never stayed there. There was a photo of Mark Ellison standing beside a white cargo van, except I had never taken it. There was also a small envelope with 3 strands of gray hair sealed inside. Detective Bell looked at me for a long time. Mr. Whittaker, she said, do you know why this would be in your home? No, ma'am. Who else has access to your garage? My wife. Anyone else? My daughter has a spare key. My neighbor feeds the cat when we travel, but no one moves that workbench. Nobody. Where is your wife now? Savannah. Church retreat. Detective Bell wrote that down. There is something about watching a police officer write down the place your wife says she is that changes the temperature in a room. I called Marlene 5 times that afternoon. No answer. At 4:17, she texted. In meetings all day. Everything okay? I stared at those 3 words for a long time. Everything okay? There was a case file in my garage. My name was tied to a missing man. 2 deputies had looked at my old workbench like it had been hiding a body. And my wife, who used to call me if I forgot bananas at the grocery store, wanted to know if everything was okay. I typed back, "Need you to call me." She replied 12 minutes later, "Can't talk. Prayer session. Love you. Love you." My friends, those 2 words can feel like a warm blanket or a knife, depending on who is holding them. Detective Bell came back the next morning with a warrant. That was when I understood I was not just a confused husband anymore. I was a person in a story other people were starting to tell about me. They took my laptop, my old desktop from the den, 2 boxes of files, the safe, the folder. They even took a pair of work gloves from a drawer beside the garage door. I asked Detective Bell if I needed a lawyer. She paused half a second too long. "I can't advise you on that," she said. That answer told me everything. Marlene came home Saturday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table in the dark when her headlights swept across the curtains. She came in rolling her little blue suitcase behind her, wearing a cream sweater and that silver cross. She saw me and put one hand to her chest. Harold, you scared me. I wanted to say, good, it's my turn. Instead, I told her about the safe. Her face changed exactly how it should have changed. Confusion first, fear second, concern third. She set her purse down slowly, came around the table, and touched my shoulder. A safe? In the garage? Yes. With a police file? Yes. Oh, Harold. She said my name like I was already ruined. Then she did something that seemed loving at the time. She knelt beside my chair, took both my hands, and said, we need to get ahead of this. We need to tell them everything. Everything. That word sat in the room between us. What is everything, Marlene? She blinked once. Only once. But I saw it. I mean, whatever they need to know, she said. What do they need to know? That you didn't do anything. I watched her carefully. The woman who had shared my bed almost 30 years. The woman who had cried when our first daughter got married. The woman who kept prayer requests in a notebook by the phone. She looked worried. She looked tired. She looked innocent. And for about 20 minutes, I hated myself for suspecting her. Then I noticed her suitcase. It was still standing by the door. Blue, hard shell, scuffed on one corner. The luggage tag was twisted backward, showing the airline sticker. Not Savannah, Jacksonville. I said nothing. That night, she went to bed early. I sat in my recliner, pretending to watch a football game with the sound off, thinking about Jacksonville, Mark Ellison, and the safe behind my workbench. At 64, you do not get many chances to surprise the people who think they know you. Most folks have filed you away by then. Retired, slow, predictable. A man who takes his pills at breakfast and falls asleep during the weather report. Marlene had filed me away. That was her first mistake. My second daughter, Amy, married a man named Russell Crane. Russell is a quiet man, never says in 10 words what he can say in 3. He works digital forensics for a private law firm in Nashville, and he has the personality of a locked drawer. I called him Sunday morning and asked if he could come by without telling Amy why. He arrived before noon. I showed him everything I could remember. The safe, the police search, Marlene's suitcase tag, the case file, the fake emails. Russell listened without interruption, which is how you know a quiet man is scared. Finally, he asked, who handles your passwords? I almost laughed. Marlene keeps a little notebook. For both of you? Yes. Banking too? Yes. Email? I suppose. He closed his eyes for 1 second. Harold, he said, I need you to change every password you have, right now. But don't do it from your home Wi-Fi. Why? Because if this is what I think it is, she's not just hiding papers. She's been living inside your identity. That sentence did not hit me all at once. It entered slowly, like cold water under a door. We drove to the public library in Oak Ridge. Russell brought a clean laptop. For 3 hours, we worked through my accounts. Email, bank, retirement portal, social security login, credit reports. By the time we finished, I felt like I had been skinned. There were 2 credit cards I had never opened. A checking account at a bank in Georgia, a storage locker in Chattanooga under my name, a registered business called Whitaker Renovation Services. And buried in an old email archive, there were hotel confirmations from Jacksonville, Savannah, Chattanooga, and Mobile, all connected to me, all places I had never been. Russell printed everything at the library desk, while I stood beside a rack of children's books trying not to fall down. Why would she do this? I asked. Russell did not answer right away. Money is part of it, he said. But this is too elaborate for just money. This is insulation. Insulation? Somebody is building a version of you that can take the blame for something. I drove home that evening with a stack of papers under my seat and a heart that felt too heavy for my ribs. Marlene was making pot roast. Pot roast. The house smelled like carrots, onions, and 30 years of lies. She kissed my cheek when I came in. You were gone a long time. Stopped by the hardware store. For what? I looked at her then. Really looked. Just needed a few things. She smiled. You and your projects. I smiled back. That was the night I stopped being her husband in my own mind. Not legally, not publicly. But inside, somewhere deep, a door closed. I did not confront her. I did not shout. I did not accuse. That is what she expected. A frightened old man begging for answers, giving her time to cry, deny, explain, control the shape of the conversation. No, I became boring. For 10 days, I became the most ordinary version of myself. I took out the trash, fed the cat, watched westerns, let Marlene touch my shoulder, let her ask if I was sleeping, let her suggest we pray together. Every time she bowed her head, I watched her hands. On the 11th day, Russell called. I found Mark Ellison, he said. I nearly dropped the phone. Alive? Yes. I sat down on the porch steps. Where? Jacksonville. Under the name Marcus Dale. He's been living there almost 3 years. The maple leaves were falling in my front yard. One landed on my shoe, yellow and perfect. Russell continued. He has a connection to Patricia Boone, Marlene's friend. My mouth went dry. What connection? They were married, briefly. Sealed records in Florida, but I found the property link. And Harold. There's more. Patricia received $240,000 from an insurance settlement after Mark disappeared. Spousal benefit. Marlene notarized one of the documents. The porch seemed to tilt. There it was. Not 60,000, not petty theft, not a woman wanting a warmer climate. $240,000. Insurance fraud. A vanished husband. A fake trail. And now, my name being arranged under the mess like a rug under dirty boots. Motive. Finally, terrible and clear. Marlene and Patricia had helped Mark Ellison disappear years ago for insurance money. But something had gone wrong. Maybe Mark wanted more. Maybe Patricia got scared. Maybe old lies had started knocking. So they built me into the story. A retired man. Predictable. Access to tools. Fake renovation business. Fake motel stays. Fake emails. A safe in my garage waiting to be found when the time was right. If the old Ellison case reopened, I would not be a witness. I would be the explanation. That night, I slept in the guest room and told Marlene my back hurt. She stood in the doorway, watching me fold a blanket over the chair. You okay, honey? Just tired. You've been so quiet. I'm old, I said. Quiet comes with the warranty. She laughed softly. That laugh used to comfort me. Now it sounded like a lock turning. Russell and I needed proof. Real proof. Not guesses. Not anger. Not a retired man saying his wife had framed him because a luggage tag said Jacksonville. So we waited. That is the hardest part, my friends. Waiting while someone who betrayed you asks whether you want gravy. Waiting while she sleeps 10 feet away. Waiting while she hums hymns in the laundry room. Russell set up a small camera facing the driveway from inside my upstairs office window. Perfectly legal. My house. My driveway. He also gave me a small audio recorder and told me to keep it in my shirt pocket whenever Marlene's friend Patricia visited. She'll come, he said. How do you know? Because people who build lies together have to inspect the cracks together. Patricia came the following Tuesday. She arrived in a white Lexus just after lunch, wearing sunglasses too large for her face and carrying a lemon-pound cake like a woman delivering kindness. Marlene hugged her in the foyer. I made coffee. I played my part. Old Harold, slow Harold, trusting Harold. They sat in the sunroom. I said I was going to lie down. Instead, I walked through the hallway, stepped into the pantry, and stood behind the half-closed door with the recorder in my shirt pocket and my heart beating like it was trying to escape. At first, they talked about church. Then Patricia said, "He knows something." Marlene's voice was calm. "He knows what I allow him to know. You said the safe would not be found until Bell came back with the second warrant. It was supposed to be. That locksmith was an accident. Accidents ruin people." "No," Marlene said. "Panic ruins people. Harold won't panic. He'll withdraw. He'll look guilty without meaning to." I pressed my hand against the pantry shelf. Patricia lowered her voice. Mark called again. Silence. "When?" "Yesterday. He wants another 50. He already got enough. He says if he goes down, we go down." Marlene sighed, not frightened. Annoyed. That was the sound that broke whatever tiny part of me still wanted to be wrong. Not fear. not remorse. Annoyance. Like the missing man was a bill she did not feel like paying. Patricia said, "What about Harold?" "What about him? If Mark talks, the trail points to Harold?" "It will," Marlene said. "By the time Sandra Bell finishes with him, she'll have hotel records, emails, business filings, the safe, the hair, the storage unit, and a motive." "What motive?" "Money, resentment, jealousy. We'll give them whatever shape they need." My wife said that about me. Whatever shape they need. I thought about our daughters, our grandchildren, the pew we sat in every Sunday, the vows we took in front of people now dead and buried. Then Marlene said, "I spent 27 years learning his routines. Harold is dependable. That's why this works." There are moments in a man's life when grief burns off and leaves only metal. That was mine. The next morning, I drove to Nashville with Russell. We did not go to the police first. That had been my first instinct, but Russell warned me. Evidence from a suspect can get tangled, doubted, delayed. We needed a clean witness. So we went to a criminal defense attorney named Judith Vance, a woman Russell's firm used when cases got ugly. Judith was 70 if she was a day, with silver hair pinned tight and eyes that made you sit straighter. She listened to the recording, read the documents, looked at the fake accounts. When she finished, she said, "Mr. Whitaker, your wife is not improvising. She is managing liability." "What does that mean?" "It means you were never the target at first. You became the exit." Judith made 3 calls. One to a retired FBI contact, one to Detective Bell, one to an insurance fraud investigator in Florida. Then she looked at me. "Do exactly what I tell you, and do not try to be brave in your own house." "I'm 64, I said. "Brave mostly looks like getting out of a recliner without groaning." She almost smiled. For the next 6 days, the world moved quietly around Marlene without her knowing. Mark Ellison was picked up outside a marina in Jacksonville after trying to use an old bank card tied to Patricia. He talked within 2 hours. Men who fake their own deaths for money are not built for loyalty. He gave up Patricia first, then Marlene. He said Marlene had handled the paperwork, the notary stamp, the false identity documents, and later suggested using me if the case ever reopened. The storage locker in Chattanooga was searched. They found gloves, old tools, motel key cards, printed emails, and a roll of gray hair that did not come from me. It came from a barber shop floor. That detail made Detective Bell angry in a way I appreciated. Patricia was arrested on Friday morning. Marlene did not know. That was Judith's idea. "Let her feel the air change," she said. "People confess when silence gets too loud." Saturday evening, Marlene made chicken and dumplings. I remember that clearly because I could not swallow a bite. Rain tapped against the kitchen window. The cat slept on the chair beside the back door. Everything looked ordinary, which made it worse. At 7:32, Marlene's phone buzzed. She looked at it. The color left her face. I knew then Patricia had not answered a message she was supposed to answer. "Bad news?" I asked. She put the phone face down. "Just church nonsense." "Patricia?" Her eyes lifted to mine. 1 second. 2. There she was. Not my wife. Not the Sunday school teacher. Not the woman who mailed birthday cards. The manager, the planner, the stranger. "Why would you ask that?" she said. "Because she worries you." Marlene smiled carefully. "You're tired, Harold." "I am." "You should go to bed." "I will." But I did not. I sat in my recliner until midnight and listened to her move through the house. Drawer opening, drawer closing, soft footsteps, the laundry room door, garage door, back inside, upstairs, downstairs. At 1:13 a.m., she came into the living room wearing her coat. I turned on the lamp. She froze. "Going somewhere?" I asked. Her hand tightened around her purse strap. "Patricia needs me." "No," I said. "Patricia needs a lawyer." For the first time in nearly 30 years, Marlene had no expression ready. "What did you say?" I stood slowly. My knee hurt. I was glad it hurt. Pain keeps a man present. "I know about Mark Ellison. I know about Jacksonville. I know about the insurance money. I know about the safe. I know about the storage locker." I know you were going to hand me to the police like a wrapped gift and call it sorrow." She stared at me. Then she laughed once. Not loud, not wild. Just a little breath through her nose. "You don't know what you think you know." "No," I said. "I know more." Red and blue lights washed across the front curtains. Marlene turned toward the window. I watched her understand it, watched the pieces slide into place. Patricia silent, Mark missing from his marina, my calm, the lamp, the timing. She looked back at me, and I saw something I had waited 30 years to see without knowing it. Fear. Detective Bell knocked once, then opened the door with 2 officers behind her. Marlene did not run. People like Marlene do not run when there is still a chance to perform dignity. She lifted her chin, adjusted the silver cross at her throat, and said, "I want an attorney." Detective Bell said, "That would be wise." They put the cuffs on her in my foyer, beneath the framed family photo from our 25th anniversary. In that picture, Marlene is leaning into me, smiling like she had found safety. I used to love that photo. Now I wondered if she had been smiling because she knew exactly where the exits were. As they led her outside, she stopped beside me. "You were never supposed to find it that way," she whispered. That was the closest thing to an apology I ever got. I looked at her and said, "No, Marlene. I was never supposed to find you." Her eyes changed then. Just a flicker. Maybe hate. Maybe grief. Maybe surprise that old Harold, dependable Harold, had a sentence in him she had not written. Then she was gone. The aftermath was not clean. Stories like this never are. Mark took a deal. Patricia took one too, after pretending for about 4 days that she was the victim of everyone else's confusion. Marlene fought longer. She always had more pride than sense. But the recordings, the forged documents, the insurance trail, the fake business records, and Mark's statement built a room around her that even she could not decorate her way out of. She pled guilty to conspiracy, insurance fraud, identity theft, forgery, obstruction, and evidence tampering. I was cleared publicly by Detective Bell at a press conference I did not attend. Amy cried when I told her. My older daughter, Rebecca, got angry first, which is how she cries. My grandchildren asked questions nobody should have to ask about their grandmother. I sold the house 6 months later. People told me not to make decisions from pain, but sometimes pain is the only honest real estate agent you have. That house had too many ghosts, not the spooky kind. Worse. The kind that wear aprons, remind you to take your blood pressure pill, and spend decades learning your signature. I moved into a smaller place near the lake. 2 bedrooms, 1 porch, no hidden safes. I checked. On Sundays, I still make coffee before church. I still drive the old Ford when the weather is good. Tyler got it running smoother than it has in years. He says the engine just needed patience. Maybe we all do. But I will tell you this, my friends, especially those of you who have loved somebody so long you forgot they could still surprise you. Trust is a holy thing, but it is not blindness. Love does not require you to ignore the locked places in your own life. And being gentle does not mean you are weak. Marlene knew my passwords. She knew my schedule. She knew how I signed my name, how I took my coffee, where I kept every spare key. She knew the sound of my footsteps and the shape of my silence. But she never knew what my silence was made of. That was her mistake. A home is not made safe by walls, locks, or years together, but by honesty, care, and the courage to face what hurts without becoming hard. Harold lost much, yet he kept his dignity, protected his family, and found a quieter life by the lake. Even after betrayal, there can still be coffee, sunlight, and another gentle morning.